Okay, thanks for coming. I'm going to give a really quick introduction so we can get right into this speech. Alex will be shedding light into a corner of Chinese history that only ever gets indirect or shaded light. The title of Alex's speech is The Divination Practice and Philosophical Implications of the Book of Change. So what is divination? The act of divining is defined as to conjure or to guess. Originally, to make out by supernatural insight, from Latin divinus, of a god, from divus, a god, related to deus, god or deity. I have a good feeling, though, that Alex will be telling us that the I-Ching is more important for its philosophical aspects than as a divination tool. Can the Book of Change help us to understand change in our own lives and how that might relate to the larger picture? Could the I-Ching even be an accurate representation of the underlying geometry of the universe? I want to remind you when the question and answer time starts, try to keep your questions to under 1 minute and ask one question, let Alex answer, and then so we can get everyone to ask a question. If everyone's asked a question, go ahead and ask your second question. Okay, go ahead, Alex. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Before we start, I would like to ask you if anyone has seen this drawing. Everyone, almost everyone, right? Because we are here in Taiwan. And do you know what does it mean?
8 elements?
Or what is it called? Yes, 8. It's usually called 8 trigrams because they are consisted of 3 lines. Like here, 1, 2, 3. Like here you see, how many lines do you see here?
6.
That's not correct. It's actually 3 lines because they are divided. So this is considered as one line, divided line. These 8 trigrams are the basis of the Book of Change. And the Book of Change is also the very basis of the whole Chinese culture, Chinese art, Chinese philosophy. So you could say that the whole Chinese culture is based on this drawing, on this piece of wood. Okay. As Ethan mentioned, the Book of Change, or I-Ching, was a book for divination, but also it has some philosophy in the book. I would first start with the divination problem and then go to the philosophy. I-Ching is not a book that you can read like every day, like for fun or in your leisure. Like before going to bed, you're taking I-Ching to read. No, that's not that kind of book. If you're reading I-Ching, or the Book of Change, that means that you're either studying Chinese language and literature, or you're either studying to be a fortune teller, or you are already a fortune teller, or you're studying philosophy or else. So, the I-Ching is consisted of the so-called hexagrams, because they're drawings that have 6 lines. And the basic lines are this undivided line, which is also known as a yin line. Okay, it's a little bit shaky. And the divided line. Sorry. That's the yang line. They are known as the yang line and the yin line. The yang line is also known as the firm line, and the yin line as the yielding line. This is how Book of Change explains the lines. So when 6 of these lines, or 6 combinations of these 2 lines are combined, we can get a 64 combination. Okay, mathematically that would be like 2 different lines on the 6th, right? If we know this formula, we come to 64 hexagrams. So at the beginning, when I-Ching was created, and that was like 3,000 years ago, around the 11th century BC, the purpose of the book was to tell the future, or to guide our actions for our purposes. So there were people who were experts in the Book of Change, fortune tellers or oracles, and they had people coming to them and asking a concrete question, and then they were using a specific method of finding one of the 64 hexagrams. When one hexagram is found, then the oracle is giving the answer to the questioner. The Book of Change is consisted of, as I said, the 64 hexagrams. Okay, they could be like this. For example, all firm lines. That's the first hexagram in the Book of Change. And the second one is its opposite. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Okay. They're known as this is the symbol for everything that is masculine, for everything that is strong, firm, light, warm, and active. And this is everything that is passive, dark, receptive. So this could be called it's a male, and this is the female principle. That's the first layer of the Book of Change. The second layer is the text, the so-called text. We have two kinds of text. One is for the whole hexagram, which explains the whole hexagram, and the second layer is for each line of the hexagram. And this way the book existed maybe for less than 1,000 years. Later, so-called commentaries or appendices were added, and they are the philosophical interpretation of the Book of Change. So I will first start with the first layer, that's the divination. Okay, so maybe you would ask yourself, how do you find a hexagram? Okay, the fortune tellers, they used to use stalks or sticks, and they were 50. And when they would have the question, they would take out the 50 sticks and immediately take one out. So this one represents the one principle, the ontological principle, let's say. So the 49 stalks were divided in two piles. And then from the right one, we took one, placed it aside. Then from the left one, we took 4 by 4 until 1, 2, 3, or 4 stalks are left. So we repeat the same with the right hand pile, 4 by 4 by 4, until 1, 2, 3, or 4 sticks are left. And okay, I will show you this on the board. We have, first we have 50, right? We take one, then we have 49. And this is the first manipulation. There are 3 manipulations in one counting. So, okay, now we have 49 sticks. Okay, we divide them. Okay, let's say on the left, how much are on the left side? Just say a number.
7.
7.
Too low.
Okay, let's say
27.
whatever, 22, right? So on the red one is 27, right? We divided the pile, the sticks in 2 piles, 22, 27. We take one from the right hand, that is 26. Then we take 4 from the left one. So this is 18. Minus 4, 14. Minus 4, 10. 6. And then we have 2. Here is 22, 18, 14, 10, 6, 2 again, right? So the previous one plus 2 equals 5. The first manipulation can have 5 or 9. This way we got 5 sticks. Then we go to the second manipulation, which is 49 minus 5. Now we have 44 sticks. Okay, we divided them on half. So we get, okay, what do we get? Let's say on the left side.
22.
50. 22? That means 22 here, okay? We take one from here, 21. It's similar to this, okay? 14, 10, 6, 2. 21 minus 4 is 17, 13, 9, 5, 1. So 1 plus 2 plus 1 equals 4. The result of the second manipulation can be 4 or 8, always. The third one can also be 4 or 8. Okay, so now we have 40. We divide them, okay, we have 18 and 22, right? 21, 14, 10, 6, 2. This is 1. So we have 1 plus 2 plus 1 is 4 again. Now we have this combination. 5 gets the... Okay, I will erase this. I will leave the result. Five gets the value of 3. 9 gets the value of 2. 4 gets the value of 3. 8 gets the value of 2. So that means here we have 5, which is 3. Here we have 4, which is 3. Here we have 4, which is 3. And we got 9. Okay. So what does it mean? 9 means a young line. This line. So but this way, we got the first line. So now we have to do this 5 more times to get the whole hexagram. So it's a very slow and complicated process. Okay, I think I shouldn't go very much in details because over time. And go to the next one, which is when I want to say about the German psychologist Carl Gustav Jung. When he saw the Book of Change, he was very amazed because he said, when he saw Book of Change, he said, this is what I was talking about the whole life. Because he has the theory of animus and anima. Like every person inside has these two natures. Like men are animus, women are anima. But inside ourselves, we have some of the opposite. Like in this, in the center drawing here, these are the yin and the yang. So, and he wrote a foreword for the English translation of the Book of Change. I would like to use Jung's quotation about the Book of Change. It says, "The I-Ching does not offer itself with proofs and results. It does not vaunt itself, nor is it easy to approach. Like a part of nature, it waits until it is discovered. It offers neither facts nor power, but for lovers of self-knowledge, of wisdom, if there be such, it seems to be the right book. He who is not pleased by it does not have to use it, and he who is against it is not obliged to find it true." So why does Jung say this? Because the answers in the Book of Change are not like yes or no. Like you ask a question, like should I take this job? Should I change my job? Should I go abroad and study? I-Ching wouldn't say yes or no. They would give you a direction of thinking how you would like to act on this point. Because as I said, every hexagram line has a text. So the oracle has to be very familiar with the book so that he can interpret the texts. The text can be very abstract. If you just read the text, if you get a hexagram and it says, there is a sentence that says, a good man passes over the river, right? Goes on the other side of the river. What does it mean? If you don't have the right question. But if you have the question, should I go abroad and study? How can you interpret this sentence? So it's the job of the oracle to interpret this sentence. You're thinking about going abroad. So maybe the river is what? Is the border of your country or whatever. You can interpret it any way. So these are the answers that the Book of Change gives. It's also like in everyday Chinese language. When you talk to native Chinese speaker and you ask them sometimes a question, very rarely they would say yes or no. They would always say something else, so you have to catch the meaning. Like we Westerners would say no first, and then because blah 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 blah. But the Chinese speakers would say because and then listening, you have to realize what his answer is. Maybe he would say no, maybe not, but that's the way the communication goes here. Okay, now let's go to the origin of the Book of Change. I said the Book of Change is a very old one, and it's traditionally people think that it originated by the legendary emperor called Fuxi. Like he lived, according to some data, in the 29th century BC. Can you imagine this, like 5,000 years ago? So what did he do? He first, it's considered that he invented these lines, the yang line and the yin line. And they represent, the yang line represents the active principle, the male, the heaven, the father, and all that is active and male. This is the female, the passive, the earth, the dark, etc. Then he combined them. And combining them, we get this. So we have the major yang, the minor yang, the minor yin, and the major yin. And then putting one more line on this, he came to the 8 trigrams, which then he put them in a circle. This sign here was not at that time. It was not put by him. It was later. So this was empty space. So what does this mean? Okay, if you can see here, we have the first is the yang trigram. So they got like a family symbolism. Like this is the father and this is the mother, and there are three daughters. The daughters are here with one yin yang. Okay, they are a little bit mixed maybe, and 3 sons. So they represent the movement of the whole world, of the things and the principles in the world. That's why the Book of Change is called the Book of Change, because the ancient Chinese realized that the world is not static. It's always in change. It's always something is changing and it's moving, and it's presented in circle because when it moves to one extreme, it goes back to the other extreme again, and that's the whole movement of the world. Like in the Western philosophy, we have Heraclitus in ancient Greece who said that everything is moving. But this way of thinking wasn't accepted by the Western philosophers. The Western philosophers still consider the world as static. In Chinese philosophy, we have this idea of change, always. From this 3 grams, when they are combined, each between each other, we got the 64. We got the 64, right? 8 times 8 is 64. We got the 64 hexagrams. In the middle, I said it was empty. In the middle was considered that there is the principle of the whole world, the origin of the whole world. In Chinese, it's called Taiji. The same Taiji like Taiji Chuan, the same word. Taiji, which in English could be translated as the great ultimate, the great principle of everything that exists. The Book of Change is the basis for the whole philosophy, Taoism and Confucianism. Taoistic Tao, like the principle Tao, is also, you can say that it's derived from the Book of Change. And then the Confucian way of the superior man, like ethical way, it can also be said is derived from the Book of Change, because the Book of Change in many occasions mentions the superior man. Superior man means like in ethical way, not like in another way. So that means later, I mentioned before, like 11th century BC. 11th century BC was the period when the book was compiled. So we had the trigrams, these trigrams, and we had also the hexagrams. But then the founder of the Zhou dynasty, new dynasty at that time, gathered those 64 hexagrams, put them together, wrote the text for the hexagons and for the lines, and then we had the book for divination. Later, another commentaries were added, which have philosophical implications, and it is believed that they were written by Confucians. Not directly Confucius himself, but his followers. And because in the Confucian books, is very little written about metaphysics, about the origin of the world. They mostly talk about the ethics and political and society. So the metaphysics of the Confucians was actually incorporated into the Book of Change. And in a way, it's very similar to Taoist one, but we can also say it's a little bit different. Okay, so I have some basic statements from the Book of Change, of the commentaries, like quotation, one yin and one yang, this is the Tao. So one yin and one yang, it is called Tao. What does it mean? It means the invariable movements of the yin and the yang, their interaction all the way. That's the way that Tao works. If yin and yang are not interacting between each other, then there is something wrong. Maybe the world wouldn't exist or would disappear, which is impossible. Because Tao is there. Tao is controlling this yin and yang, these movements and the change. Another crucial statement, Taiji, I said Taiji, the great ultimate. Taiji and Tao can be synonyms in the Book of Change. Taiji generates the two modes. The two modes generate the four forms. The four forms generate the 8 trigrams, and so on. So this is a kind of cosmological statement about the origin of the world. And on the other hand, it can be also a statement about the origin of the Book of Change, how the Book of Change originated. Anyway, the point is that there is this one principle, and it's called Taiji. And Taiji is responsible for the whole existence, for the creation of the existence, and for the changes. Taiji also is the invariable law of the change in our universe, in our world. Another crucial statement is what exists before physical form and is therefore without it is called the Tao. What exists after physical form and is therefore with it is called a concrete thing. Okay, what does it mean before physical form and without it? That means a physical form is something that we can see, something that we can perceive. These are all physical forms. And these are called concrete things. This is a marker, this is a whiteboard, this is a table, and so on. These are concrete things. But then there is something that is outside of this world of shapes, something that we can't see its shape, or there is no shape actually, it's without shape. And that's the very first principle, which is called Tao, or Taiji, in a way. And from this commentary, actually, the crucial metaphysical way of thinking starts and goes on through the Chinese philosophy until even today. The distinction between this world and something that supports the world, like the being of being, the thing in itself, or you can use whichever word we want. And Book of Change reminds us that if we want to see the world without shape, then we have to go deep into the change in this universe. If we understand the change, then we can understand the world without shape. And that's a very crucial metaphysical statement from the commentaries of the Book of Change. Okay, I would like to finish soon. So before that, I would like also to mention the German philosopher and mathematician Leibniz, who was also amazed when he discovered the Book of Change, because Leibniz was creating a binary system, 0 and 1, and which at that time was pretty much useless. No one knew what to do with it, but then in the 20th century it became basis for the computer sciences. Anyway, when he discovered the Book of Change, he said, yes, the Book of Change is like the binary system. For example, like if we have the trigram like this, then Leibniz would present it like this. Right? If 0 stands for yin line, 1 for yang line, so this. This is actually a similarity between Leibniz and the Book of Change. And you ask, maybe you would ask, why do I say change, not changes? Some authors say Book of Changes, some authors say Book of Change. There is a slight difference. Changes refers to, it's plural. But in Chinese language there is no plural. The word yi can be singular, can be plural, depends on the context. So I chose to say Book of Change following one scholar, one British scholar, I think, John Blufford, and one Taiwanese scholar, Fang Dongmei, who claimed that it's more proper to translate change instead of changes, because we are talking about the change. We're not talking about very different changes going around the world. There is one big change that's going around the world. That's why we should translate it into singular. And at the end, the word Yi, Chinese word Yi, which means Yi-Jing, right? That's this word, if I wrote it correctly, has 3 meanings. One is easy and simple. In modern Chinese we have wrong Yi, which means easy. The other one is change, and the third one is invariability, so the opposite of change. So how can we say here that the same word has two opposite meanings, change and invariability? Well, we can say that when we are talking about the unchangeableness, that means that the change is always there. It's a constant change, and it can never change. It's unchangeable. So to conclude shortly, there is only one thing that never changes: the change itself. Thank you very much.